All right, we're going to call this conference committee hearing to order. Welcome, everyone. This is the Transportation Omnibus Finance Bill Conference Committee of Tuesday, May 9th. The time is 2:08 p.m. A quorum is present. And members and to the public, I believe posted and also as a hard copy is a document, provisions for consideration of 5/9/2023, policy and finance articles dated 5/8/2023, 7:49 p.m. And that will be the guide of what we're going to talk about and go over. The plan is for us to ask staff to step us through these items. A couple of them we're going to skip over because of some late breaking developments. So there's 28 items. I think we might be pulling a couple of them off. We'll figure that out as we get to them. And then we will open it up for a hearing. So start thinking about whether or not you have any opinions or wisdom to share with the committee on any of these matters. And then we'll close the hearing and we'll just, rather than doing the one fell swoop motion like we did the last couple of times, we'll consider each item one at a time and have the discussion on those at that time among the committee and consider potential amendments. So with that, Mr. Greenfield and Mr. Burris, are you ready to help us step through this document and all the items? You are. All right, Mr. Greenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me. Sorry, I did not do the courtesy of asking my fellow co-chair if he has any opening comments.
Mr. Chair, no, thank you for your setting the table here, and I think we're good to go with our nonpartisan staff walkthrough.
Thank you. Mr. Greenfield.
Mr. Chair and members of the conference committee, there has been a list distributed to the members of the committee along with the public that is a provisions for consideration list dated May 9th, 2023, with a timestamp of 7:49 on the bottom. So that's what I'll be operating off of for purposes of this walkthrough. I'll have of note, the first consideration, the first line, the Highways for Habitat program is not being considered for today. So we'll be moving on to the second provision.
And then, Mr. Greenfield, I just wanted to explain to the committee. So this was the matter that was raised for discussion at our last meeting, whether or not to take the Senate language of feasible. There's been some discussion if the word practicable would be a compromise between just must and the Senate qualifying language. There seems to want to be more conversation about whether or not we'll take that half step of a compromise or not.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and I appreciate your work on it. I appreciate Senator Jasinski thinking through this. I was able to get, because I know that Chair Dibble had raised some issues around the finances and the expense around this, and I did do a little bit of checking with the Board of Water and Soil Resources and have some data. Since we're not taking this up now, I won't get into it in detail, but it did seem that, at least from a funding standpoint, that the program would be very practicable. But I did want to, have some additional conversations about this and then we can potentially take this up. But I think we're very close and appreciate Senator Jasinski's work on this.
All right, Mr. Greenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So moving on to the second provision, which is line number 3 on the table for consideration. This is the Deputy Josh Owen Memorial Overpass designation, and the working proposal is a Senate-only provision. So I'll turn it over to the committee for discussion and/or a motion.
Mr. Greenfield, we'll just go through everything and then we'll open it up for public hearing on any matter, and then we'll come back to the committee.
Mr. Chair, that makes much more sense. The second provision on the table is the electric transmissions lines in the right-of-way. This is a provision that's been heard by both bodies and has identical language in the side-by-side. However, the Department of Transportation raised some concerns, so there is an A55 amendment that's been distributed that seeks to clarify the requirements of an electric utility seeking to install transmission lines and using the right-of-way to do so. There really isn't anything substantively different in the amendment. It's just broken out a little bit differently, and if further testimony can elaborate on the substance and the requirements of MnDOT. Line 4 on the table, or sorry, line 5 on the table is the Minnesota blackout special plates provision. Let me get the aggregate. Line 6 on the table, or line 5 on the table is a Senate-only provision relating to research activities at the University of Minnesota Center for Transportation Studies. Okay. Line 7 is the Senate-only provision pertaining to the maximum amount of fees charged for documentation by auto dealers. Line 8 is a Senate-only provision pertaining to a weight limit exemption for towing and recovery vehicles. Of note, there's been an amendment distributed for that, but the committee will discuss further whether that will be adopted. Moving on to page 2. On line 9 is a Senate-only provision involving a driver's license for medical reason. There is also an amendment that's been distributed to that provision. Line 10 is the veteran designation on a driver's license or identification card. This is a Senate-only provision. Line 11 on the table is a Senate-only provision pertaining to the operation costs for the MnDOT central office building.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. If you could give us the amendment number, that would be helpful. Just saying, rather than saying there's an amendment, that would be helpful for us to track it later. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Petersburg. That's a great suggestion. So, yes, Mr. Greenfield.
Mr. Chair and Representative Petersburg, thank you for the suggestion. I'll just note the driver's license for a medical reason amendment is the A60 amendment. SDH 2887 A60.
A60?
A60, correct, Mr. Chair.
Has that been distributed? Thanks. All right. And then the towing one, line 8.
The towing amendment is the A56, Mr. Chair.
All right.
A56.
Great. Thank you.
So we're back on line 11 of the table, operation costs for the MnDOT central office building, and that amendment is the A71 amendment, which should have been distributed to members and the people attending. The next provision on the table is line 12, the North Minneapolis Service Center. That's a Senate-only provision. On line 13 of the provisions for consideration, this is the Ramsey County Deputy Registrar addition. On line 14 of the table, there is the Clean Transportation Standard and Sustainable Aviation Fuel Working Group. There is a House amendment that has been distributed that ends in the A107 amendment. Moving on to page 3 of the table on line 15. This is the Midtown Greenway Extension Trail Planning. There is the A63 amendment. And then I will hand it over to Mr. Burris to discuss the remaining provisions in the table.
Mr. Chair and members, the next
Burris.
provision is something that's between House and Senate, similar policy language with some technical differences. This is on waivers from driver's exams for licensing and motorcycle endorsements. And the discussion here is to take the House language to pick up the House technical approach. The next provision is a repealer that's House-only language, and this would eliminate a limitation regarding providing information over the phone on motor vehicles. Following that is a Senate-only provision that goes along with another provision that's farther, it's kind of the next row on the list, so these sort of go together. The first of these removes language that's then being picked up in the following section, and this establishes some requirements around school districts providing training on active transportation safety. Following that is a Senate-only provision that is one piece of another provision that's a little bit farther on bikeway and active transportation. It gives direction to MnDOT regarding and the Active Transportation Advisory Committee on and MnDOT assistance to local units of government. Following that is a Senate-only provision that requires consultation with the Active Transportation Advisory Committee as part of establishing state bicycle routes. And then there's a modification to a statutory Mississippi River Trail to clarify or establish it as part of the state bicycle route system. And then there's an additional, next line is a addition to the state bicycle route system that establishes a Jim Overstar bikeway. The next provision is a modification to riding rules, and this is for bicyclists. Makes a couple of different changes in requirements for bicyclists. Following that, there is a Senate-only provision on stopping requirements for bicyclists, and there is a amendment. It's the A62 that would narrow down that provision so that it would only be apply for bicyclists who are coming up to a stop sign. So there wouldn't, it would continue, it would allow for going through a stop sign once some requirements are met, but would not provide for stop lights riding rule changes. Following that is an establishment of the Active Transportation Advisory Committee. This is another Senate-only provision. And then there's the next provision is a modification on that allows for use of some portion of funds under the Active Transportation Program to go towards safety curriculum. This also is Senate only. And then there's an addition that is found in the A58 amendment, and that would pull in a revision to a route designation that's in current law. This is Senate File 1545, House File 1968. And that, Mr. Chair, is the walkthrough of the list of considerations.
Thank you, Mr. Burris. So I will just mention quickly that a little wrinkle was called to my attention just a few minutes ago on item number 11, which has to do with the split between general fund and trunk highway fund for the central office building. There's just some other pieces that we would maybe need to pick up as a part of that. So rather than try to figure that out today, we'll just let that rest for the time being, if that's all right with the committee. All right. All right. So now I will open up the hearing for public testimony. If anyone would like to come forward and testify on any of the provisions that were just presented to us. I know we have someone here to talk about the Clean Transportation Standard from out of town, so please come forward. All right, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you. My name is Jeremy Martin. I'm the Director of Fuels Policy and a Senior Scientist at the Union of Concerned Scientists. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Mr. Martin, if you could speak a little more closer to the microphone.
Yes.
Great, thanks.
Should I repeat the introduction?
No, you're good.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of the Clean Transportation Standard Working Group in the Transportation Omnibus Bill. A clean transportation standard holds fuel producers accountable to clean up the fuel used to power Minnesota's transportation system. It complements other policies governing vehicle manufacturers, utilities, transit agencies, and others to make sure that all participants in the transportation system are pulling in the same direction, helping to reduce climate pollution. A clean transportation standard is a comprehensive, science-based, and technology neutral, and it supports transportation electrification while also helping the biofuels industry transition to more sustainable crops like winter oilseeds, and also reduce emissions from their existing supply chains. A clean transportation standard should include safeguards to make sure the policy benefits all Minnesotans and also protects water quality and other vital resources. The working group that's been described in the conference report is broad and inclusive, and I think dialogue among this group can help to address information gaps on this complex and relatively unfamiliar policy. Because it's comprehensive, a clean transportation standard will affect a wide range of industries and interests, and so getting all the stakeholders at the table between sessions will help us to move towards the development of a strong and effective clean transportation standard, hopefully next session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions, members? Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I wanted to thank Representative Brand for his work on our side of the street on this issue. And while I think the original proposal, was quite complex and very detailed, there were some concerns among groups, I think, both in industry groups and environmental groups. And so I think that a working group is a good compromise so that all of the different issues can be sorted out. I think that the composition of the group, as was said in testimony, is pretty encompassing. And so I look forward to following this group. Obviously, the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the transportation sector is one that many share. But how to do that, how to do it in a way that acknowledges, I think, some of the challenge with life cycle emissions from various options that will be discussed is important. So, Representative Brand, thank you, and thanks to all the people that are working on this. Thanks to the Senate for taking some initiative in here. We didn't hear this proposal in the House, but I think this is a good solution and a good compromise.
Thank you, Representative Hornstein. Anything further, members? All right. All right. Would anyone else like to come forward to testify on any matter before us? All right. I'll count to 10 slowly. All right. Not seeing anyone, we will close the public hearing at this point and open it up for the committee's deliberations. Members, any matter that you would like to discuss? Or maybe, members, maybe we'll do this in a logical sequence and we'll just go back through the list in order, and then take action on those, take discussion, debate, amendment, and action on those. So we're jumping over number 2, jumping to number 3, the Josh Owen Memorial Overpass. I'll just mention, members, that as I think you're aware, this came into the Senate bill as an amendment on the floor. We lost Deputy Josh Owen in a tragedy just a few weeks ago. Senator Westrom represents the community and brought this forward. I do know that a separate standalone bill has been introduced and was referred directly to rules. I waived transportation jurisdiction, so it may proceed as a standalone item, but we wanted to be sure to include it in this package just to be sure that this does happen. It's a little bit of a fast track. Usually we do these memorial namings a number of years after, but this is, an opportunity while we're in session to honor the life and the sacrifice of Deputy Josh Owen. Any questions? All right, would anyone like to make a motion? Senator Jasinski.
Mr. Chair, I would move the R18 portion or item number 3. I guess so.
Yeah. Council is saying something like item number 3 sufficient for a motion?
Mr. Chair and members, I believe that would be sufficient if we're all looking at the same table and referring to the same lines. So 3 is the Deputy Josh Owen on the table that I'm looking at, and I believe the members of the committee are looking at as well. So I think that would suffice.
Great. All right. Anything further, members? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. So item number 4. So this has had a lot of discussion in our Transportation Committee and a couple of different times, and I think also in the Conference Committee. There has been a lot of work and discussion outside of the committee with the Department of Transportation and the stakeholder groups, which has resulted in the A55. Council, would you like to describe the A55?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, the A55 is essentially a rework of what is already currently the language for this provision. If you note, paragraph B is broken up into certain clauses that are required for a entity that is placing and maintaining electric transmission lines along, across, or in any trunk highway. So the current provision on R21 is essentially jammed into a paragraph B, and this decides to break it out to make it read a lot better. Of note, the changes that were requested by MnDOT relative to the language in the side-by-side begins on line 1.15. After public safety, the Department of Transportation requested to carve out an exception for the proper function of the trunk highway, including future expansions. So the rules that are adopted by the commissioner allow the denial of that permit for that reason. And then in addition, on line 1.24, there is a requirement that the entity who seeks to install the transmission lines along, across, or in any trunk highway has to obtain a permit from the commissioner. It's our understanding that that process is already in place. This just formalizes that before an entity can move forward with installation. And then on paragraph C, this is also a new provision that was discussed between the Department of Transportation and advocates, requiring the commissioner to issue a decision on the permit within 60 days of receiving the entity's request. And then the final change is on 1.27, which is just a conforming change to remove the more old language and rephrase it to specifically just read a little bit better. So those are the substantive and technical differences between the A55 and the provision that exists currently in the side-by-side.
Yes, I appreciate that we're taking the opportunity to update some of the arcane language that we have in our statutes. Getting rid of the suches, getting rid of the shalls, getting rid of the herein's. So questions, members, on the A55 amendment? All right, would anyone like to move the A55 amendment? So, Senator McCune, yes, this is your work product, so.
So moved. I would like to move the A55, Mr. Chair.
All right. So Senator McCune moves the A55 amendment, which has to do with line 4 on the walkthrough document. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right, moving on. Try to move quickly here. Got a lot of provisions. The blackout special plates. So members, this would propose to take the House language. The discussion, I shouldn't say that. I should just say the discussion that has been had prior to this meeting would be to take the House language, which would establish the blackout plates, include the $30 premium that they would cost to obtain those plates on an annual basis. And then the real question was, should those funds go to the Highway User Fund or to driver and vehicle services? And the proposal that the House would make to the Senate is that we accede to their preference, which is to have those funds go to driver and vehicle services. Chair Hornstein, would you like to elaborate?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yes, on the House side, we felt that we've certainly merged accounts, which is a good thing. We did that the first day of our conference committee, and I think that to make sure that these very, very important accounts are solvent and continue to grow, we felt that DVS was the appropriate destination for this new source of revenue.
All right. Can I pause this discussion for half a second? We need to complete our last action. So Senator McEwen, would we amended provision number 4, and now we need to adopt provision number 4. So would you like to move that we adopt provision number 4 as amended?
So moved.
All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. All right. Discussion to the House proposal to the Senate that we adopt their view of the world and that blackout special license plates, additional funds that might come to the state if they prove to be as popular as the agency hopes, goes to the agency that proposed the idea. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, this was my amendment on the floor. Again, I think this would be money much better spent on our trunk highway fund. We can use that money. It's revenue that we're all looking for as we're working through the year this year, trying to find more revenue to work on our roads and bridges and get our trunk highway fund. So I would still emphasize the Senate position on this. I think it's a much better use of those monies to increase our monies to help our roads and our bridges. So I would stick to that and support the Senate side.
Senator, what if all this money went directly to deputy registrars?
I would do that too, but no.
All right. Anything further? Representative Hornstein.
He keeps promoting me.
Or demoting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Jasinski. I appreciate that, and we're always looking for money to support our trunk highway system. But this was a recommendation from the executive branch, and so I assume that between MnDOT and DPS there was conversation about this, and so we're following again that recommendation here.
All right. Anything further? All right. So does anyone have a motion?
I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
So Representative Hornstein would move item number 5.
Yeah, and R23.
To adopt the House language. Is that correct, Council?
Mr. Chair, that's correct, the House language.
All right. So that is Representative Hornstein's motion. Anything further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. No. Motion carries. All right. So moving on to item 6. So what this would propose to do under current, I don't actually have my language in front of me, so I'm going to do this by memory. So Mr. Greenfield, you'll have to help if I get this wrong or am not accurate. Currently, the University of Minnesota Center for Transportation Studies has a capped dollar amount that is a part of the effort that the Department of Transportation goes to, paid for from trunk highway funds for research activities. They have a research element to their overall program. This is part of it, not the totality of it. They fund research in other places and other ways as well. And it's a set dollar amount, and this would create a set percentage. Mr. Greenfield, if you could fill in the details for me.
Mr. Chair, that's generally the intent of this section. I will point out to the members of the committee on R23 on the Senate side, 144.4, the commissioner shall spend at least 0.1% of funds appropriated to the Commissioner of Transportation other than state aid funds. But the stricken language just removes the ceiling that those funds cannot exceed $2 million. So this removes that ceiling.
Okay, thank you. So that's the more accurate description. And the argument would be that the $2 million was established a while ago and of course has lost ground to inflation. The other, and the reason of course for the money is that the Department of Transportation works very collaboratively. I'm on the Center for Transportation Studies Executive Committee with Representative Petersburg, and can tell you that the department is is present at all of those executive committee meetings, and in those discussions, you gain an appreciation for how much the Center for Transportation Studies does on behalf of and alongside and in collaboration with the Department of Transportation to carry out a lot of the needs they have for research, for innovation, for just ongoing information that they need, kind of on a routine basis, et cetera. So it's money very well spent so the department can be as innovative and efficient as possible. So I would be in support of this change. I will open it up to the committee for response and reaction. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I know you and I both sit on that executive committee with CTS, and they do a lot of research, and we are in a kind of a cusp of a lot of changes in transportation right now, and it seems to me that our institution that the state runs and owns would be part of that primary research responsibility to do that, and right now, $2 million doesn't always, especially if you need to do 2 or 3 projects, $2 or $3 million is not always sufficient to actually get anything done. So I think it's appropriate for us to lift that ceiling, knowing that we have that institution to respond. So I would be in support of it as well.
Great. Thank you. Anything further, members? Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I apologize. I'm doing 2 things here, but, obviously the Senate side, we want to see some type of cap. We understand the importance of it, but it's always nice to have at least some cap so we can watch that spending. So that was the only side that I wanted to comment about. So I'd like to see the cap remain. Maybe we need to modify the amount, but I think it would still be nice to see a cap in there.
All right. So noted. Thanks. All right. Would anyone like to make a motion? Senator Petersburg, or sorry, keep demoting you guys over there.
The chair seems to support a unicameral.
Like Nebraska.
Mr. Chair, I'll also move that approval.
All right. So Representative Petersburg moves the item 6 or line 6 provision, Senate language. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to item 7, maximum dealer documentation fees. So this, simply put, would allow dealers to charge auto purchasers a certain fee to kind of handle all their documentary needs. It's a couple $100, I think. And the dealers wouldn't necessarily make a lot of money on this provision. I think they might handle these documents, but they're capped out at a certain amount. They don't recapture their costs necessarily. I might be wrong about that. So this isn't necessarily a profit driver for them, but allows them to, maybe they might make a little bit of money, but for the most part, I think they're looking to recapture their costs. Mr. Greenfield, am I being roughly accurate in my recollection of this provision?
Mr. Chair, that's correct. I will note for the people following along on the side-by-side on R24, on the Senate-only provision, the fee change as it graduates year on through 2024 into 2025 and thereafter. It begins from July 1, 2023 until June 30, 2024 is $200 or an amount of 10%. And then it raises the following year to $275, and then the next year after that, on and after July 1, 2025, it's the lesser of $350 or an amount equal to 10% of the value of the sale or lease. And that 10% clause applies to each graduation of the fee from the current law, which is $125.
All right, thank you. Questions, members? All right. Senator Jasinski, would you like to move this provision?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would like to move item number 7.
All right. Everyone understands the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right, moving on to item 8. I think, oh yeah, did we decide we're going to? So let's just kind of discuss where we are on this. So.
Without the amendment. That's what they said.
All right, so staff has a good suggestion. This was a moving target for the last couple of days. And there was, I believe, an A56 proposed, but now we're of the understanding that the A56 might not be necessary. If I could invite MnDOT forward just to verify and validate that we could adopt the Senate language without the changes that would be proposed in the A56 amendment. Mr. Rudin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric Rudin with MnDOT Government Affairs. That's correct. We kind of discovered late that there was not a maximum tire weight limit in the language originally, and so we thought we needed to add that. After having some further discussions with State Patrol and the towing industry, we've determined that we do not need to add that language, so you can feel free to adopt the original Senate language without the amendment.
Great, thank you. Questions, members? All right, Representative or Senator. Now I'm demoting us. I'm just having a heck of a time here. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was my provision. Thank you. We talked about this morning. Thought we did have some further discussion needed, but we found out we had a clarification, so we did not. So I would move the item number 8.
All right. Everyone understands the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. Item 9. So this is allowing folks who need to help family, allowing young relatives of family members who need help with their issues, their medical and health issues. And there's, I think, an effective date amendment. Which amendment is that?
Mr. Chair, the A60 amendment.
Oh, that's right, the A60 amendment, which would just move the effective date back a month at the request of the agency. Any questions, members? All right, would anyone like to move the A60?
Mr. Chair, I'd move the A60.
Senator Jasinski moves the A60 amendment, item 9. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and Senator Jasinski moves item 9 as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, both motions carry. All right. Veteran designation. This allows who's eligible to be designated as a veteran and clarifies the paperwork that they would provide to make that designation on their license and ID cards. This is a Senator Howe initiative. Are there, lost track of, no modification? All right. So, Senator Jasinski, would you like the honors on this one as well?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for accepting Senator Howe's position on this one, or the language change. So with that, I move item number 10.
So Senator Jasinski moves item 10, the Senate language on veteran designation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. So we're going to jump over. Oh. Mr. Burris.
Mr. Chair and members, just so that members of the committee are aware, there was a prior version of the provisions for consideration document that had been distributed. I believe the updated version that committee members have been working off of is now distributed and posted. So that updated version has a timestamp of 5/8/23, 7:49 p.m. Just so that members are aware, there might have been a misalignment in the numbering of against the prior document. So I believe staff is fully aware of what has been adopted so far, but if there are any questions, we can certainly jump back, but I just thought it'd be good to make that clear.
Thanks. Well, our side had the right document. Maybe we're keeping you in the dark over there. So, and I think that's the one that Mr. Greenfield used to walk through, the 7:49 timestamp from last night.
Nothing substantive has changed.
Very good. All right, so we're going to jump over item 11. Item 12, so this is Senator Champion request, and that would allow the existing North Minneapolis Service Center that is operated by the county, currently I think only offers driver's license agent services, would become a deputy registrar, so would also then offer motor vehicle transactions and services. Slight expansion of the offerings on the north side of Minneapolis. Any questions on that, members? Representative Petersburg.
Just in overall, because I know there's some discussion yet about how many driver's license systems are going to be in place and aren't going to be in place, I just want to make sure that we remind ourselves, as we're adding more, that that goes into the mix of things.
Yes, so this would, to your point, as well as the next one, would be an addition, with, of services. Now, granted, they already provide driver's license agent services, but it would add the motor vehicle side of the ledger. And it would be, within the 10-mile radius standard that we try to maintain between those kinds of offices. I think a fairly strong argument was made in favor because North Minneapolis is a coherent, contiguous community. And if you look at the map, where the other kinds of services could be accessed, they're well outside of North Minneapolis and not really practical for folks to go to those places for those purposes. And so that's why this particular one made some sense. But your comment is well taken. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. I'm just concerned about, I'm not sure if we've dealt with the number of driver's license bureaus that are open, that are going to be open into the future or not, and how this might impact that number, not necessarily the location. And maybe I was missing one day, so that might have been dealt with already. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. And we might be conflating the exam stations, and that's a conversation we will be having, whether we're going to have 93 of those or not. So that's a conversation we will have in the not too distant future, we hope. All right. All in favor of, Senator Morrison will move line 12.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. So item 13 is a similar but somewhat different discussion. This is an initiative of Senator Herr, and it would direct the Department of Public Safety, Driver and Vehicle Services to allow for the establishment of a deputy registrar in East St. Paul. This would violate the 10-mile radius standard that we have. The argument that Senator Herr makes is that is in two parts. One is that there needs to be a deputy registrar in this particular area that serves particularly the Hmong community with the cultural knowledge as well as linguistic knowledge that particular office would need to serve that community in that area well. And there is a large volume of folks, so in terms of like the amount of business that could be generated and still not offset tremendously other DRs in that 10-mile radius. Everyone could still be well supported with a sufficient amount of business. So that was the rationale and argument the committee accepted on the Senate side. Any questions, members? All right. Representative Cagle, would you like to move the line 13 provision?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. Now we're to Clean Transportation Standard Fuel Working Group. And we have an A107 amendment that would be proposed. Mr. Greenfield, would you like to describe the changes that would make?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. The A107 essentially does two broad things. The first is it removes the references to sustainable aviation fuel, so the task force or working group would be specifically centered on the clean transportation fuel standards. And then on line 1.10 of the A107, we are deleting subdivision 2, which was just this unbroken out list of members to the working group, and instead this instruction inserts specifically 2 individuals representing each of the following categories that are carried over from the language in the clean transportation fuel standards. Mr. Burris can add any further comments, but I believe those are the 2 substantive differences between the clean transportation study and the side-by-side versus the A107 amendment. I'll also note on page 2 on line 2.16, It also requires it doesn't require, but it also permits any commissioners convening the working group to contract with a third-party facilitator to organize the working group.
All right, thank you. So 107 got 2 pages. All right, I think I'm missing. All right, sorry, just I got a one-sided version of the A107. I just wanted to glance at it a little more closely. All right, got it. Okay, so Chair Hornstein, I think you wanted to make some comments.
Well, and I hope, again, Representative Brandt can move this, but we decided to go with the Clean Transportation Standard Working Group, and that's separated from the original Senate language around joining that with the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Working Group. There's a separate proposal that we're considering related to sustainable aviation fuels, and actually the authors of the underlying bill on that are both on the committee, Representative Cagle and Chair Dibble. And so we're looking at that very closely, and that will be considered separately. I hope that we can look at greenhouse gas emissions in the aviation sector, holistically. So sustainable aviation fuel is part of that, but also landside operations at the airport. Other ways we can be reducing greenhouse gases in aviation, I think, are important, and we'll be considering all of those separately from this particular provision. So just wanted to mention that for those of you who are concerned about the sustainable aviation fuel issue. Just because it's not in this motion, we will be looking at that separately.
Thank you, Chair Hornstein. Anything further, members? Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I again discussed with you, and it's for members, the A67 I had handed out, but because of the A107 was introduced, the A67 will not be required, so I just want to try and avoid confusion, and thank you for considering that the A67 when we met, and with that, I'll stand by for the A107.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator Jasinski. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. I just am just inquiring, is the intent of this amendment that the membership of this working group is going to be 40 members? Because that does seem a large working group, and so I want to make sure that that is the intent of this amendment.
I haven't counted them, so are there 40 people?
There are 20
yeah.
denotations of 2 apiece, that's 40.
Big issue. It takes a lot of brain power. Representative Brand can tell you, I had this CTS bill on this side as well, in addition to the SAF bill. And it was the full lobbyist employment bill for a while. Everyone was either loving it or hating it. I couldn't quite tell. It clearly wasn't ready for the prime time. Representative Brand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would say that this is going to be a very complex conversation, but it's a great opportunity for across the state of Minnesota as we look at transportation fuel in the future. And so there are a lot of folks that are going to be involved in this type of a discussion, just like there was a lot of folks that were involved in the discussion that we had in our transportation fuel standard bill collaboration that we worked on earlier this session as well. So, yep, I would move the A107 amendment, and I look forward to the conversations that ensue out of passing this into law this year.
Thank you. So Representative Brand moves the A107 amendment to the proposal on line 14. Any further questions, members? All in favor say aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Pause. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. Again, I would just reiterate, the larger you have a working group, the slower it takes. So just as you're aware that this will reduce the amount to get done in a period of time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, served as a co-chair of a task force along with you, and I recall that was a slow go. And we didn't even have that many people. All right, all in favor of the A107 amendment from Representative Brand, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. And now we need to adopt item 14 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to item 15. So this is the Midtown Greenway Trail Planning Direction to the Met Council that would propose to be modified by the A63, which makes it clear that the Met Council, who really doesn't want to do this at all, can hire a third party to undertake the study, analysis, and report activities. This would propose to be paid for, if anyone is curious, should the larger bill prevail with some additional resources in the metro area come into law and be passed. It would come from those resources. All right. So any questions, members, on the proposal or the amendment? Representative Greenfield. Mr. Greenfield. Council Greenfield.
Mr. Chair, I'm flattered.
Or insulted.
I was just clarifying that the A63 is the amendment that that's before the committee.
All right, great. So questions, members? Representative Morrison. Oh, see, I'm just having a heck of a time. I don't know what is going on with me. I don't know. Just Senator Morrison. You were a representative at one time, as was I, so.
Mr. Chair, this is true. Did you want me to make a motion?
I would like you to move the A63 amendment.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. And then Senator Morrison moves the item 15 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Moving on to item 16. So this is a part of the, this comes out of the E section of our packets of the side-by-side, which folks will remember is a part of the independent expert review, a number of changes around deputy registrars and driver's license agents and full-service providers and, all kinds of stuff. This one, we thought we would move that as a package, but we're pulling out two items, this one and the next one, because they are not necessarily wrapped into that proposal and have been considered as standalone policy initiatives. And this one in particular has been advanced, I think, by a couple of different senators, including Senator Herr, Senator Jasinski. Were you a proponent of this too, I think? Or someone else was. So that's why we're taking this out of that package and moving it as a standalone. I think the proposal is to take the House language. Mr. Greenfield, can you help us a little bit with that?
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, that's correct. While the provision is functionally on a policy matter the same between the House and the Senate, the technical difference is the Senate language referring to a United States territory. This was a concern that was brought forward by a constituent that their Puerto Rico license would not qualify. However, after researching the Chapter 171 definition section, that specifically provides that a state includes United States territories like Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands, et cetera. So the House language is more inclusive of the definition and less redundant than the Senate language.
That's right. I forgot about that. So yeah, I think it was might have been one of my constituents. I can't remember, but someone was really adamant that we were leaving territories out. Turns out it was already provided for in existing law elsewhere in the section. All right. Any questions, members? Representative Petersburg.
I guess I'm supposed to use this mic. Yeah, I think this is my bill in the House as well, and it is something in which we supported because we have people driving throughout the state from other states as well, and so many more states no longer require the written exam after that as well. So I would certainly support that, and if you would like, Mr. Chair, I will move item number 16.
So Representative Petersburg moves item 16, the House language. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. And item 17, also kind of a standalone, even though it's wrapped into the IER section. Mr. Greenfield, can you just remind us what this accomplishes?
Mr. Chair, and thank you. Now, this is a House-only provision, but it repeals the limitation that exists in current law on providing vehicle registration information over the phone, and this repeals that limitation, and so now vehicle registration can be provided to the owner or lessee of the vehicle over the phone.
Okay. All right, sorry, I missed that. Can you say that again?
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, this line 17 on the table repeals the limitation of providing vehicle registration over the phone. This is now can be provided to the owner or the lessee of the vehicle.
Right, so kind of a common sense thing. So, any questions, members? All right, who would like to move this piece? All right, Representative Tapke.
Item 17, I move that item 17, House language, be approved, Mr. Chair.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right. So, almost the entirety of the rest, with the exception of the very last item, comes from the Bill Dooley Memorial bill, having to do with the bicycling and bicycle policy. And that's, of course, out of tab H, section H of our packets in the walkthrough side by side. So we'll just go through these one at a time, starting with line 18. Mr. Greenfield, yeah, can you just help explain this? And I think this one kind of works in conjunction with item 19. So if you could explain what that is intended to accomplish.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. Currently, under current law, schools have permission, they have discretion to teach bicycle and pedestrian safety to pupils. This makes, Section 2 makes that mandatory for K through 8 pupils. So to reconcile that inconsistency, the permissive language in Section 1 is stricken.
Great. And this was heard by the Education Committee, so it got all of its proper consideration and debate in K-12 or E-12 Education Committee. All right, who would like to move? We're just going to go with Senator Morrison. All these, she's been the champion of all this work. So Senator Morrison will move line 18 of the document.
Mr. Chair, so moved.
All in favor? Any questions? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right, line 19, again, kind of relates to line 18. Senator Morrison makes that motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. So line 20 requires the Active Transportation Advisory Committee to provide information on bikeway designation guidelines and MnDOT technical assistance to local government. So this has to do with the Active Transportation Advisory Committee, which I believe is being reestablished. Mr. Greenfield?
Mr. Chair, that's correct. Later in the Article H, the Active Transportation Advisory Committee is created.
All right, yeah, it went away for quite a while. So any questions on line 20, members? Senator Morrison moves line 20.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Right. Questions, discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Oh, aye. All right, getting a little jumpy with my gavel there. So item 21 requires MnDOT to consult the aforementioned advisory committee when identifying state bicycle routes. Questions, discussion, amendments. Senator Morrison moves item 21. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 22 designates the Mississippi River Trail as a state bicycle route. Mr. Greenfield, what does that mean exactly? What is the difference? What is it now, and what does it become when it becomes a state bicycle route?
Mr. Chair, I unfortunately have to say I would need to look into that further, specifically what designates a state bicycle trail, but I think I'm going to use my phone a friend and ask Mr. Burris to explain what a state bicycle trail is.
What is a trail? What is a route?
Mr. Chair, members, MnDOT might be able to speak to that difference, but the language in this really just establishes an explicit designation. So the Mississippi River Trail is the name of this route, and that already exists in statute. This would essentially create a parallel structure in the designations of state bicycle routes.
All right, so I think it finds its way onto like a map or something and probably becomes eligible for program funds and things like that. So anything further, members? All right, another Senator Morrison special here. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. We're getting there. So item 23. So this would designate the Jim Oberstar Bikeway as a state bicycle route. And that's a bikeway that goes from St. Paul and goes all the way up along the North Shore to Canada. Any questions, members? Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just really appreciate this language. Jim Oberstar was a giant in transportation in the state and across the country. And I think it's especially appropriate that we honor him with the bikeway because he was a real champion of bike transportation, not just for recreational purposes, but as a transportation mode. So thank you to the Senate for bringing this. I strongly support it.
Thank you, and as do I, and I'm excited. I'm really excited for this piece. I think a lot of us had a really strong personal and professional and political connection with Jim Oberstar, especially those of us who worked on transportation issues for a long time. He was extremely generous with his time and his knowledge. I would visit him occasionally in Washington, D.C. at his office, and he would easily spend, I'm not exaggerating, a couple hours with us, just talking and reminiscing and informing and receiving the information and the ideas that we had. And he really had an expansive view of what transportation could mean. He was a huge champion of the ocean-going port of Duluth and our freight infrastructure, our interstate and local road infrastructure, but also really understood the importance of alternative modes, including transit and non-motorized transportation. So he was a good friend and an incredible mentor, and this is a perfect way to honor him and his legacy. So anything further, members? Senator Morrison moves the Jim Oberstar Bikeway, item number 23. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. So item 24 institutes revised riding rules for a bicyclist on a road, and this has to do with and Mr. Greenfield can just give us a brief one-over on what that does. I think this has to do with the distance between bicycles and cars and bicyclists' obligations. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. This deals with the width that must be given to a bicyclist when they're operating on a road.
All right. We had some discussion, 3 feet, not, is this a good idea or not? And I think we decided this with the agency was there's no amendment proposed for this. All right. So Senator Morrison moves item 24. Any questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. All right. We do have a change to the next one. This is the somewhat controversial Idaho stop, bicycle roll-throughs at stop lights and stop signs. And there's a proposed change to that, the A62, which, members, I think is in your packets. Is that true? Yes. So, Mr. Greenfield, can you help us understand the A62?
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, the A62 deletes the references or deletes the permission of using the Idaho stop at stoplights. So the Idaho stop, which allows a bicyclist not to come to a complete stop when traveling through an intersection if there are no visible hazards present, would apply to stop signs and not stop lights. This comes at the request of the Department of Transportation.
Thank you. And I can also say that I've asked, I don't know if the Bicycle Coalition was advised ahead. Well, we did have some indication. I don't know. But, if there's a last-minute response and reaction from the Min Bike folks, I would welcome you coming to the table. I did check in with other bicycle advocates who, without any prompting, thought stop signs were a good idea, stop lights not a good idea. Any discussion or questions about this modification of this proposal? Senator Jasinski.
Mr. Chair, again, we had some concerns, obviously, with this, with the stoplight, and it's still do with the stop sign as well, but I think this is better language than it was before, so we'll be supportive of it.
Thank you. I'll say for my part, I hope, I strongly believe, rolling through stop lights is a bad idea. I just strongly believe that myself. No one will doubt that I'm a very, very strong bicyclist advocate. I bike around my neighborhood quite a bit. And I really hope what this sparks is a conversation in the bicycling community so that people will have a greater awareness of their obligations as bicyclists. I think, the greater harm comes from, cars, of course, that are disregarding bicyclists, but sometimes the rare, very rare and odd bicyclist doesn't bicycle safely, and I see quite a bit. So I live near the lakes in Minneapolis, and so sometimes I'm in my car moving out of the neighborhood on a north-south axis, a lot of east-west bicycling going over to the lakes. A number of folks, again, rare, but enough so that it sticks in your head, and then everyone kind of gets painted with the same brushstroke, just blasting through stop signs with no regard for who's traveling with the right-of-way in cars. And so I hope, this makes a lot of common sense. It doesn't make sense to come to a full stop at a stop sign when you're on your bike because you lose the momentum. It makes biking much less viable, and it makes no sense if there are no cars, but likewise, it's so dangerous when bicyclists blast through stop signs at full speed with no regard for the cars that are coming on to that intersection. So I hope we have a better circumstance as a consequence of adopting this proposal. Senator Morrison, are you comfortable with this change?
Mr. Chair, after much discussion and contemplation, I am comfortable with this change.
All right. Would you like to move the A62?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. And then Senator Morrison moves the item 25 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. And then item 27, even though we're not getting into money quite yet, this is kind of policy around money. Mr.
Chair.
Greenfield, can you help us understand this?
I believe we missed over item 26.
Oh, sorry about that. Here we assign this committee all kinds of duties and then we don't reestablish them. So item 26, Active Transportation Advisory Committee. So we kind of reestablished an advisory committee that existed some years ago to do a number of things. The title is implied. Any questions? All right. Senator Morrison moves item 26. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Use of funds, requiring that, item 27, requiring that $500,000 of the active transportation grants are for active transportation safety curriculum. That relates back, I think, to some of those earlier provisions on bike safety. Questions? All right. Senator Morrison moves item 27. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. And then finally, we have the Corporal Caleb Erickson Memorial Highway. We were going to carry that in the policy omnibus, which is up in the Senate on Friday, but requested by leadership because it has some nexus with finance to take into this bill. And this is a small technical correction to that designation we made a few years ago. I believe this is a Senator Jasinski matter. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, this was passed last year. However, in putting it in, it was miscorrectly put on a different township. So we're correcting the township and then actually asking for being effective the following day of enactment. So it's already been done. They just want to move it to where it should be. It was a mistake done last year. So appreciate your openness to include it here and get it changed for the record.
All right. Thank you. And Mr. Greenfield.
Mr. Chair, the instruction to insert the Corporal Caleb L. Erickson Memorial Highway is the A58, which I believe has been passed out to members. So that amendment will have to be adopted to insert the section into the side-by-side.
With that, I move the A58, Mr. Chair.
All right. So Senator Jasinski moves to A58. Is that in front of us? I don't have it in my pile here. And Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. Yes, it is also in my district as well. And we made a mistake originally. It just covered what was in my district, the two townships, and this now will go to the township farther south, the direction that they wanted. So this just corrects that. Signs are already up. It's just a matter of moving them now. So just needing permission. I agree with the amendment.
All right. So thank you, Representative Petersburg. So, Mr. Greenfield, tell us what order we need to do this in.
We need to, Mr. Chair, we need to adopt the amendment, and then we will move to adopt this Section 18. Line 28, but it'll be inserting Section 18 into the Part D of the side-by-side. So adopt the amendment first, then the adopting the Section 18 onto the side-by-side into the conference committee report.
All right. So Senator Jasinski moves the A58 amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. So I didn't quite catch all that. So why don't you state the next motion, Mr. Greenfield, and that'll be Senator Jasinski's motion.
Mr. Chair, the members, the motion is to adopt the new Section 18 as part of the conference committee report.
All right. That's Senator Jasinski's motion.
And Mr. Chair, I'd give that to Representative Petersburg if he could make that motion. We'll
That's
split this
Representative-
one. It's
all right,
both in our
that's
district,
Representative
so.
Petersburg's motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right. All right. All right, we got through that pretty quickly. That wasn't as long as I thought it would be. According to the brains of the operation, the current schedule has this committee meeting at 2 o'clock tomorrow, Wednesday, May 10th. Any changes will be posted to the conference committee page. And also, it's important for members to kind of either take your, I know we promised you could just leave your materials here, which you can do, but be aware that if you do that, your materials are going to be moved onto the cart because, as it turns out, this room is needed tomorrow for a joint hearing with the House and the Senate Bonding Committee. So other people will be using the room tomorrow. So if you want to leave your materials, feel free to do so. Just kind of consolidate them into a tidy pile, or alternatively take them with you and then bring them back tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for a productive hearing, and to all the members. And again, just a reminder, we'll be in this room at 2 p.m. tomorrow, and we'll be continuing our work. And then for the House members, we are in session, so please proceed quickly to the House floor. And we're taking up some conference committee reports there. So we'll be making a beeline to the Capitol, House members. And with that, Mr. Chair,
Anything further, members? All right.
look forward to seeing everybody again here tomorrow at 2.
All right. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.